Have you ever wondered if your company is maximizing the return of your data investment? Are you collecting the right data required to make informed decisions? Is there more that can be learned from our data? Koyas Institute can answer these questions and help you discover the hidden value within your datasets by utilizing a well-rounded approach to data analysis. Stop leaving value behind and start increasing the return on your data investment. The next generation of data analysis has begun. We are pioneers in pattern discovery. We are Koyas Institute.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a beautiful sunny day in the UK, which is why I've got my sunglasses on. I'm sorry, but that light is just beating through the window. So by now, I think most of you should be aware of the incredible statements made by an individual named David Grusch. These admissions from a senior US intelligence official have provoked a wave of media coverage that continues to grow, and for good reason, because this individual has made the astonishingly bold claim that he has been made aware of programs within the US defense intelligence architecture that have intact, and he made a point of saying intact, vehicles of non-human origin.
Tonight only on News Nation, bombshell claims from a military whistleblower published this morning alleging a secret UFO retrieval program within the U.S. government.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will. It's probably not the right parlance, but no kidding, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
Now, this is an admission that many within the research community already believe to be true anyway, that the US government and other powerful groups have for many decades had access to non-human technology and have been painstakingly attempting to reverse engineer this technology under the cover of clandestine black budget special access programs that are circumventing the standard process of governmental oversight, hiding in the shadows in an attempt to quietly understand, exploit, and replicate alien technology. Now, this is not new information for many within the research field, but what is new is the fact that a senior US intelligence official who has a background with the National Reconnaissance Office and the National Geospatial-Intelligence Agency was given permission by the Department of Defense to make these statements publicly, which begs the question as to why. Why has David been given the green light to make such incredibly disruptive and groundbreaking statements that implicate his own employers in relation to a multi-generational cover-up of the existence of both alien life and our possession of some of their technologies? Now, we should make it clear that David is not necessarily a whistleblower, at least not in the traditional sense, because he's been given permission by his superiors to engage in public discourse and to make the statements he's made. But we do need to keep something in mind here. We need to keep in mind that running adjacent to this and in direct contradiction to the statements made by David is the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, which is a DoD office. And AARO, in the form of Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick's statements during the recent hearing, has made it very clear that, to them, no evidence of alien technology or crash retrieval or reverse engineering programs has been discovered. So this is a little strange, is it not? You have a DoD office that is claiming that there is no evidence for such programs and technology, and now you have a DoD intelligence official who was given the green light to openly state that the US government does have not only evidence for alien life or non-human life and their technology, but is in possession of some of this technology, has been in possession of it for decades, and has put a significant amount of effort over the years towards attempting to understand and eventually replicate this technology within the confines of highly secreted special access programs. So we have one department, the DoD, but we have two messages, and these messages conflict with each other. So how do we make sense of this? Well, as many of you know, the US government and its defense intelligence infrastructure, it's not cohesive. There are factions of allegiance. There are differences of opinion. There are battles between various agencies, offices, other groups when it comes to obtaining certain types of intelligence. It's a territorial space, and one hand often does not know what the other is doing. And I think this is certainly the case with the Department of Defense. The entire department does not move in unison. There are going to be various groups and goals and agendas and programs and networks that exist within what some might believe to be a singular entity, when in reality it's basically multiple entities under a singular banner, the banner being the DoD. So with that being said, one theory that I'm keeping space for is that we're seeing a clear distinction between, at the very least, two factions that want control over the UFO discussion and how it's publicly managed. One faction has its influence embedded into things like the AARO office, and since we've seen, I think it's fair to say, a severe downplaying of the situation from AARO, it could potentially represent this anti-disclosure faction of the DoD that intends to softball this subject, to downplay the subject and reduce the overall interest in the issue from both a public and also a governmental point of view, establishing a framework through which they can, contrary to their claimed goal, dissuade would-be whistleblowers with actionable intelligence from coming forward in any meaningful way. And then on the other side of the situation, we have a group inside the same department, within the DoD, that for whatever reason gave David Grusch the go-ahead to make statements that completely contradict the official statements made by AARO, which to me is suggestive of a separate faction, a counter-faction within the DoD who believes this information should begin to surface into the public arena in a more accelerated fashion. Now, I do have to be a little careful with what I say, but I have people in my network, people that tell me things privately, individuals who operate in closer proximity than me to the conversations in DC and have access to privileged information by being so close to the grapevine within government. And I was told this was coming. I didn't know the name David, but I tweeted back in, I think, mid-May that I was very confident in stating that non-human vehicles and reverse engineering programs were going to become a part of the government discourse this year. I was told this type of revelation, this type of conversation was going to be started, that it was coming down the pipeline this year. And now it has. A little earlier than I personally expected, to be honest, but it's happened. So when I'm also being told that this is literally the beginning of a cascade of events, that David represents an internal sea change within the defense and intelligence communities, and that leading on from this, there are more testimonies to come of similar and even of greater potential magnitude than what we've already seen now from David Grusch. I mean, what I can say is that based on the recent events of David coming out of the shadows to publicly state that we have these technologies, that we have these programs, is that there are others ready and waiting. And it is sounding very likely that, absent any barriers placed in front of these people before they get their moment in the light, there are individuals who will be stepping up, most likely within this 2023 year period, and certainly, as long as nothing goes wrong, moving on into 2024. Now, I do also have to say that I am keeping a skeptical lens attached, to a certain degree, when assessing the overall reasoning behind this sudden acceleration in the unfolding narrative being presented to us from the government regarding this issue. And I think it is sensible to be wary, to be suspicious, to question the reasons behind the kind of admissions we're seeing from a DoD-cleared insider. However, this is a seminal moment, and we should appreciate that fact. But we should also just hold enough space in our minds for attempting to decode the agenda or the end goal in sight for those that are giving someone like David Grusch his green light to speak publicly. As I said, this could be factions within the internal structure of the IC who have decided enough is enough. And it's time for people to get more information on what we have locked away under classified wrappings. But this subject is so disruptive, it's so earth-shattering, the implications of a 70-plus year cover-up on this type of subject, by the same groups that are now providing us with insider testimony, that cannot be understated. And the possibility for smokescreens or obfuscation, misdirection, falsified narratives, that cannot be disregarded just because we're being told what we want to hear. Okay, this is a subject of such incredible sensitivity that it has led to the death of many over the years who attempted to break open this box, perhaps a little bit too early. There is an individual that I'm in contact with through a source who, at least for the time being, has said they will never go public with what they know. And they're refusing to do so for two reasons. Firstly, they recognize that they are beholden to their NDAs and it would cause significant problems for them if they were to speak out. But even in recognizing what certainly seems to be a genuine level of concern and of potential threat, they're also reluctant to speak out of loyalty to their employers. They have the steadfast belief that a net benefit to the world is better achieved if things are done quietly, behind the scenes, preventing outside interference from other competing nations or from bad actors. So my point here is that there are various reasons for secrecy on this issue, and there will be various reasons for public dissemination of intelligence on this issue. And the reasons may not always be obvious to us as observers of the ongoing developmental process being placed into the public arena. Another individual within my network believes that this process is being accelerated due to the acceleration in AI development, and that the DoD and other entities with classified portfolios, program affiliations and traceable histories involving the UFO issue feel the need to get ahead of the inevitable integration of advanced AI models that will be able to pick apart the data sets and arrive at conclusions that could implicate these entities in illegal, unconstitutional activities of extreme importance for the global population. And so one theory is that in order to save face, groups like the DoD and others have made the decision to curate the narrative themselves and face the music, so to speak, in a way that reduces blowback as much as possible for those who were and are still complicit in what is essentially the greatest, most significant cover-up in human history. And so there is always that potential thread to follow as a means of understanding the internal justification for such bold moves to be put into action by elements of the DoD and the wider intelligence community, because I think there could be the chance that they're genuinely terrified of being caught with their pants down on this issue. Better to take a few small punches by admitting things yourself than to be discovered later down the line and risk more severe outcomes for the military-industrial complex, for the government, and its relationship to its own body politic that's already in a very distrusting and ideologically fractured state. So right now, in my opinion, Occam's razor would cut the DoD into multiple factions with separate interests, and that these factions are in conflict with one another in regards to who controls the pace of this discussion to the public as it relates to complicit actions in secret with UFO information gathering and the existence of classified research and development in association with otherworldly, non-human technologies. And David Grusch stepping out is, in my mind, at least for the time being, until we learn more about him and his claims, a potential signature of the pro-disclosure elements of the DoD attempting to circumvent or sidestep the blockades being erected by those who would seek to derail or significantly decrease the pace of public discussion and the pace of congressional and Senate insight into this particular issue. So I think for now, we have to say that time will tell. You know, it's early doors with what appears to be a next phase in the conversation, so I'll remain reluctant to dive headfirst into a claim that this is a definitive sign of a looming disclosure of global significance. However, if David Grusch's claims are fully validated and we do receive the concrete evidence that is currently locked within the special access program structures that David claims to have discovered, then we will be looking at a revelation of global significance. And I don't see anyone would be able to say otherwise, regardless of any narratives at play or the background agendas, whether it be benevolent or not so benevolent in its purpose. This is still a moment of world-changing history being manifested in front of our eyes. We are living through a moment of incredible significance with such far-reaching implications for the evolutionary journey of our species. We could almost say that we are looking at a total transformation of our reality as an emerging conscious group. And so we should be excited, if not a little freaked out, to be living in such an incredible time, because breakage of an old form is almost always needed for a new form to develop. You know, in order for the phoenix to rise from the ashes, it must first endure the fire. Now, this doesn't have to mean a literal fire, an apocalypse, a destruction of humanity, but more likely a symbol of the transformative properties our species has already demonstrated throughout history. And now it seems that perhaps we truly are arriving towards a fundamentally vital moment of human evolution. And for us, as small individual navigators within the trenches of the human experience, we are, for the most part, I would say, unable to fully comprehend the developmental mosaic, the evolutionary structure being formed by our collective actions. And just like in your own life, when you reflect upon those hardest of moments, many times you will recognize the power inherent within them that is rarely recognized at the time. The way these moments ultimately propelled you into other directions in life, moments of pain that ultimately gave you strength in the long run. So we could view the collective of humanity as a singular form, going through the developmental stresses and strains required in order to grow, in order to become wiser, to become stronger. And if we are at the precipice of such a shift, I feel lucky to be here with all of you, braving the storm together and pushing through to what I am holding space for as a brighter, more positive future. Thank you as always for being here. I apologize for a little bit of a delay in interviews. I was recently in California, in Palm Springs, for the Contact in the Desert conference with my good friend John Majorowski. Some of you will know John from our talks with Jean-Luc that we usually call the Dream Team chats. He's got a great channel called UFOs on the Level, has some brilliant guests. So I definitely recommend checking him out if you haven't done so already. But we had such a good time. We had a great time at the place. It was a spectacular venue. I managed to meet quite a few subscribers, people on Twitter. I even managed to meet Richard Dolan in person for the first time, which was long overdue. You know, Richard really was a big catalyst for getting my channel started. I mean, I was listening to him back in the day, and I still do, of course, but he was one of the ones that I was always listening to when I first got into this subject. And then eventually, you know, not that far into the creation of my platform, when I was getting into the Admiral Wilson leaks, Richard and Tracy gave my channel a shout out on the Richard Dolan show, which was just a really amazing moment for me, a really vindicating moment. And then he had me on for an interview. And since then, I've had him on and we've become friends. But I never met him in person, so it was just a really great moment to be able to tap him on the shoulder and give him a hug. And it was long overdue. So it was a really great experience being at the Contact conference. And I also had my first opportunity to speak on stage. Big thank you to J. Christopher King, who was the organizer of the panel that I was able to take part in. I was pretty nervous, I won't lie, but I think I managed to pull it off. People seemed to be happy with my responses, and there was a good reception afterwards of people coming up and saying good job and saying that they were subscribers to the channel and things like that. So yeah, it was a bit nerve-wracking, but I've crossed that threshold now, and hopefully I'll get the opportunity to speak again. And if I can, because I don't know how the copyright, agreements are going to work with Contact in the Desert, but if I can put the panel talk up with me talking, I'll do that. So obviously all of you can check it out and see how I did, see if I come off as nervous as I felt. But it was really good, and I hope to have another chance to do that. So yeah, guys, really exciting time, pretty uncertain, some incredible statements being made. Let's see where it goes. I've got some great interviews coming up in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, all the stuff that helps the algorithm put me higher up the search list. If you enjoy my content, it's pretty much the best way to help me. And if you're able to, would really appreciate you checking out my Patreon and potentially subscribing to support me via Patreon. If you do that, you get access to our Discord server and early access to content. I can tell you now, the Discord server is amazing. Really, really quite amazing. There's incredible people in there, and it's become just an information highway for this subject without a lot of the toxicity and infighting and arguments that you tend to get on the wider social media platforms. It's kind of a bit of a safe haven where researchers have gathered and just good information, good talks, a lot of fun as well. If you want to become a member, you can sign up through Patreon. The links are in the description box below. And you can also just make a one-time donation through PayPal if you would like. All of these things are really appreciated. As I've said before, not in it for the money. I'm totally in it for getting this information out. But this is how I'm able to kind of keep contributing as much time as possible, right? Is that I'm able to sustain myself off of the work that I'm doing. So if you can support it, if you have the means to, and you like what I do, it's greatly appreciated. I'll see you pretty soon. Until next time, have a great day.